With two co-presidents in the White House, in Donald Trump and Elon Musk, sometimes it's difficult to remember that there even is a vice president, especially when that vice president is JD Vance, who spends all his time on Twitter complaining. And whenever he does have an at-bat, whenever he does have a chance to speak on behalf of the administration, he has already embarrassed himself so much, and just recently doing so on the world stage in a speech that has received tremendous blowback abroad, but the blowback that it's getting at home is just as bad. And some of it came from Jake Tapper, who called out JD Vance for this ridiculous notion that he tried to push in the speech that we are going to get into. But before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button. It goes a long way, and it really does mean a lot to me. Now, before we get into what Jake Tapper said just today, of course, him and JD Vance have a bit of a history going back and forth. So to add a little bit of color and context to what Tapper and Vance both spoke about, I want to check out a flashback from an interview they did right before the election.
Talking about Donald Trump and what he said.
Yes. And
Donald Trump says...
And you'd much rather talk about what Donald Trump allegedly said than what Donald Trump did in office. What he did in office, Jake,
what he said publicly,
1.5% inflation.
The military to go after the enemy within, which is the American people.
He did not say that, Jake.
The enemy within?
He said that he was going to send the military after the American people. Show me the quote where he said that.
He said the enemy within.
He said far-left lunatics. He's talking about people rioting.
And Schiff.
He's talking about people rioting after the election. I think
the Pelosi's were rioting after the election?
He said...
Adam Schiff was rioting after the election?
You're using two separate phrases. He said about using the military that far-left lunatics, people who riot in the wake of an election, people who burn down American cities in the summer of 2020, yes, we should have a federal law enforcement
response. This is what he said to Joe Rogan on Friday. The enemy within that he wants the military to go after.
No, this is
the enemy within, a bigger problem than Kim Jong-un.
The second part.
We have people that are really bad people that I really think want to make this country unsuccessful. That's who the enemy within.
And did he say that he wants to use the military against those people? Here's the game.
Use the military to go after the enemy within.
Here's the game that you're playing. He said that he... No. Can I answer the question, please? He said that he wanted to use the military to go after far-left lunatics who are rioting, and he also called them the enemy within. He separately, in a totally different context, in a totally different conversation, said that Nancy Pelosi and Adam Schiff were threats to this country.
Were the enemy within.
Were
the enemy within. He said they were the enemy within.
So every time he uses the exact same phrase, we assume that he uses
I don't know. I don't throw around the term of enemy within to talk about using the military against going American people.
And you're asking his vice president, but you won't let me answer the question. I'm telling you that Donald Trump has said, and I agree with him, that we should use the U.S. military to go after Americans. People who riot, who burn down our cities.
And this was what John Kelly was. This was what John Kelly was alarmed by. The idea of using the U.S. military to go after Americans. That's what he said.
Donald Trump never said Americans writ large.
JD tried to make it seem as if it was an absurd idea that Donald Trump would go after his political enemies. Now, Kash Patel, with an enemies list, is going to be the director of the FBI. JD Vance said it would be insane for Donald Trump to go after those who disagree with him. And now, of course, Donald Trump is banning the AP from the Oval Office, from the press room, from coming on Air Force One, because they won't refer to a body of water by its new fake name that Donald Trump bestowed on it. It is ridiculous. Everything that JD Vance said wouldn't happen is actually coming true. The only true prediction that JD Vance ever made was when he was an anti-Trumper, when he was saying Trump wanted to be a dictator, that he would destroy this country. That's when JD was spot on. Since then, it's kind of gone like this. And that is exactly why Jake Tapper called out JD Vance for the attacks on free speech. This is something that he was pushing this ridiculous idea about during a speech in Europe, and I want to check out all that Tapper had to say.
Vice President JD Vance sounded quite like a free speech advocate in Munich today, especially with this comment.
Free speech, I fear, is in retreat. And in the interest of comedy, my friends, but also in the interest of truth, I will admit that sometimes the loudest voices for censorship have come not from within Europe, but from within my own country, where the prior administration threatened and bullied social media companies to censor so-called misinformation.
Speaking of the interest of truth, that position Vice President Vance is espousing would be a lot easier to stand behind if the Trump White House, the Trump-Vance White House, weren't currently waging a battle against free speech, which the Trump White House itself is labeling misinformation. Around the same time that Vance was saying that, the Trump White House announced that it is barring reporters from the Associated Press, one of the biggest news outlets in the world, from the Oval Office and from Air Force One indefinitely. The reason for this? Associated Press editors are not abiding by the president renaming the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. The U.S. is the only country calling this body of water the Gulf of America, and the AP is read all over the world, so its editors say they're going to use the name Gulf of Mexico while also acknowledging Trump's renaming. This move by the White House is questionable legally. It may fall under rules preventing the White House from engaging in, quote, viewpoint discrimination. But beyond that, it's without question, this move to ban the AP from the Oval and Air Force One, without question, this is contrary to freedom of speech. This is the most powerful people in the world punishing a legitimate, important news organization for not abiding by its language edicts in the way they want them to. Vice President Vance, look at the foundation on which you're standing with your free speech proclamations. You are standing on a slippery slope. Be careful.
It is so clearly MAGA. It is so clearly Republicans. It is so clearly the Trump White House, the strongest institution in our country, maybe the world, in the American presidency, trying to censor and push down those who disagree with him on the names of bodies of water that is acting on this censorship, who is afraid of speech that is not exactly how they like it to be. Republicans claim they love free speech until the speech is about how terrible they are. And it should be. This administration is acting not only in ridiculous and absurd ways, but damaging, consequential, irreconcilable action that'll damage our country for years to come. Democrats could, I don't want to get too doom and gloom here, but win the midterms, win the presidency in 4 years, and it would still take so long to fix the damage that has been done in already such a short amount of time in this presidency. It is scary. And the intimidation is the worst part. The stuff that you don't really see. It's why Donald Trump is trying to make an example out of the AP, because if he does in a strong enough way, coming from the weak man that he is, then he won't have to do it anymore. If he gets all media outlets to fall in line, which they are, by the way, the corporate media outlets, oh yeah, they're falling in line, then you'll never have to see that fight again. He wants the big show of power so he doesn't have to do it anymore. So everyone just bends the knee. That's what it's all about for him. If you don't have to enforce yourself as a dictator because everyone's already fallen in line, you're winning. And that's what Donald Trump wants to be doing. And that's why we cannot allow this censorship. And it's what Jamie Raskin was talking about at the technocrat level of this all, the Elon censorship, the Elon and his buddies censorship of it all. And I want to take a look at that right here.
The wrecking ball of right-wing authoritarianism is swinging right through Congress and coming directly at the freedoms of the press and the people right now. The self-appointed CEO of this operation is the unelected bureaucrat and aspiring techno-dictator Elon Musk, who Steve Bannon calls a truly evil individual, trying to create a techno-state in which he's king and most of us are reduced to the status of serfs. Break things and break things fast, Steve Bannon says, is Musk's M.O. De facto President Musk and his nocturnal Doge Muscovite Youth Brigade have now taken control of dozens of federal computer databases in order to dismantle entire federal agencies and programs that we in Congress created and funded with appropriations to keep our people safe and secure and healthy. Just this week, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, the agency that lowered overdraft fees from $38 to $5 and cut credit card late fees from an average of $32 to $8 for American consumers, saving us billions of dollars, an agency that has actually stopped corporate ripoff artists from stealing $21 billion from us, got a stop work order from Elon Musk. The billionaire plutocrats want to dismantle the EPA, which protects our air and water, and the NIH, which promotes life-saving scientific and medical research. Yesterday, Donald Trump banned the Associated Press, a 179-year-old newspaper organization, from the White House because it declines to call the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America. This is straight-up press censorship based on retaliatory viewpoint discrimination. Trump's DOD kicked out 8 news groups that had space in the Pentagon, but which asked skeptical questions of the new secretary, including the New York Times, NBC News, and the Washington Post, all ousted in favor of outlets willing to faithfully advance the party line of the state, like Breitbart and One American News Network. Mr. Chairman, I despair sometimes when I reflect how far this war on representative democracy and the rights of the press and the people has already gone and how far it might go. But then, Mr. Chairman, I confess I think about you. I think about you because you and I, a MAGA Republican, a conservative Republican, and a liberal Democrat, have always shared a common commitment to the First Amendment. This gives me hope. As you've put it, quote, the First Amendment is first for a reason. Without it, we cannot enjoy our other liberties. So I tell myself that if things got really bad here, if we began to look more like Orban's illiberal democracy in Hungary, or Putin's Russia, where journalists end up in prison for their writings, and young people are jailed for expressing anti-war sentiments, and opposition leaders like Alexei Navalny are poisoned and die mysteriously in jail, or Kim Jong-un's North Korea, or Xi's China, authoritarian dictatorships where all must worship the orders of the dear deified leader, I will call upon you as a colleague, Chairman Jordan, whom I have known to work seriously across the aisle sometimes, to come defend political freedom in America. These are dark times, but in the past we've agreed strongly on the fundamental importance of free speech.
This is why we have to dispel with the ridiculous narrative that it's liberal media, the liberals control the media. TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, definitely. The biggest podcast, Joe Rogan, Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson. The biggest cable outlet is Fox News. Every corporation has bent the knee to Donald Trump. I don't know where the liberal media is at this point. I don't know where the liberal media is in corporate America. You could not point. You could not show me. But independent media, while we don't need to don it as liberal, I would say it's pro-democracy. I'd say it's anti-authoritarian. Anything that's anti-Trump is, yeah, we're stepping up. A lot of us are. And we're certainly doing it on this show. And if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button. You can leave a like on this video. And if you stuck around to the end, you can drop a blue heart in the comments. And until next time, I'll see you soon.